Well, good morning, everyone. Today, we'd be remiss if we did not make some remarks about the extraordinary historic moment, or many moments, that happened yesterday in Israel. The world's eyes are still fixed on Israel, where President Trump is welcoming home now the last of the hostages who've endured 2 years in Hamas captivity. I thought it was remarkable. I saw a video last night of one of the released hostages who made the point that as soon as the election was held in November in the United States, Hamas began to treat him and his fellow hostages much better. They fed them better, they respected them more, they changed the tone of how they treated them, they no longer spit upon them. As he said in his own words, elections have consequences. And he said or implied that the Hamas was counting on Kamala Harris to win and not President Donald J. Trump. But thankfully for the whole world, that didn't happen. And this is an historic moment. It deserves enormous credit and recognition on the world stage. It's truly, truly historic. For generations, we have aspired to peace in the Middle East, everyone around the world, and now President Trump has delivered it. I'm going to make an announcement today. It's the announcement in the U.S. that was made in the Knesset yesterday. I'm proud to tell you that together with my friend Speaker Ohana of the Israeli Knesset, the equivalent of our Congress, we're going to embark upon a project together to rally speakers and presidents of parliaments around the world so that we will jointly nominate President Donald J. Trump for next year's Nobel Peace Prize. No one has ever deserved that prize more, and that is an objective fact. As Speaker Ohana said before the Knesset yesterday, quote, "Whoever saves one life, it is though he has saved an entire world." That's what some of the rabbis there would say, some of the sages he noted would say. It's an indisputable fact that no president has undertaken the work of saving lives and pursuing peace with such determination and with such remarkable success as President Trump. And under his leadership, we are witnessing the dawn of a new golden age, not just for America, but for the entire free world. The world is changed by these actions and strong leadership. American strength is good for free people around the world, as we say always, and peace through strength is maintained. There will be more to share on this in the weeks ahead, but today marks the start of this effort that we'll embark upon together, this joint parliamentary project, and I'm honored to do it alongside our ally and my counterpart in Israel in leading that effort. Welcome to day 14 of the Democrat government shutdown. It's 2 weeks of Democrats in Congress inflicting untold pain on the American people for nothing other than pure politics, as we've explained at this podium every day of the shutdown. Today, Senate Democrats will have their 8th chance to end this mess by passing our clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution, the government funding bill that would end all of this immediately. Over 3 weeks ago, the House passed that bill, and you all know the details of it. It is completely clean. There are no policy changes, no partisan riders, no gimmicks or tricks at all. All it does is keep the lights on at the current funding levels for a few extra weeks while we complete the normal appropriations process. Now compare that to the Democrats' counterproposal. They're demanding $1.5 trillion in new spending paid for by American taxpayers. And I want you to be specific. I want us to be specific. I want you to note what that counterproposal includes, because we've not yet gone into all the details of it, because it's large and very absurd. But here's some of the highlights of this. It would reverse common sense reforms that Republicans made in the Working Families Tax Cut that keep illegal aliens off taxpayer-funded health care. This is a fact. Page 57, section 2141 of their counterproposal, as we've been posting everywhere. And it would, they would add the illegal aliens, non-citizens, back to taxpayer-funded benefits. It would cost taxpayers nearly $200 billion. They would also remove a very reasonable and modest work requirement that we put on able-bodied young men with no dependents. As we've said, they should not be riding the wagon and taking Medicaid. That is intended for vulnerable populations, the elderly, disabled, and young pregnant women, for example, and not young able-bodied men without dependents who are playing video games. We put that into the law because it's common sense. Their counterproposal would reverse that. So taxpayers would be funding them again. They would make in their counterproposal permanent COVID-era Obamacare subsidies without any income caps or any other reforms at all They would make that permanent. That would cost taxpayers an estimated $358 billion. They would take away the $50 billion that we put into the law to support rural hospitals. They would remove that. And they would send $500 million to liberal news outlets by refunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It would also restore up to $5 billion of American taxpayer funds for wasteful spending for international projects. Here's a couple of examples. This is in their legislation, their counterproposal on the CR to keep the lights open. This is what they want to do. They want to spend $24.6 million of your hard-earned dollars as a taxpayer for climate resilience in Honduras. They want to spend $13.4 million for civic engagement in Zimbabwe. They want to send $3.9 million for LGBTQI+ democracy grants in the Western Balkans. They want to spend $2.9 million of your dollars for desert locust risk reduction in the Horn of Africa. And $2 million for, quote, organizing for feminist democratic principles in Africa. We are not doing that. These are unserious proposals from unserious people, and they are playing games while real Americans are being harmed adversely by the shutdown. Yesterday, I read you an excerpt from President Obama's speech during the 2013 shutdown when he advocated for a clean CR to reopen the government and resume negotiations. It sounded very familiar. Democrats cheered him on back then, including Chuck Schumer. He himself said some Republicans' refusal to support a clean CR back then was, quote, the politics of idiocy. Take him at his word. So yesterday we decided to do a little count of the number of times that Chuck Schumer has supported continuing resolutions just since he became the leader of the Democrats in the Senate in 2017. That number came out to 29 out of 30 continuing resolutions. That's how many times he wholeheartedly, enthusiastically supported CRs enacted into law. That's a 97% support rate. What's changed? Well, this time his job is on the line. And we've explained this very clearly because everybody can see the obvious political motivation here behind his decision to shut the government down right now. He helped us avert a shutdown in March by doing the right thing and supporting virtually the identically same continuing CR that we're offering today. And his radical base went crazy, and they haven't forgiven him for it. That's why Chuck Schumer is opposed to it today. That's what changed. It's very obvious. This government shutdown is plainly and simply an exercise in image rehabilitation. This is an attempt at image rehabilitation for Chuck Schumer. So selfishly, completely about himself, he is shutting the government down to hurt other people. He needs to show a fight against President Trump so he can keep his left base happy through the next election cycle. How do we know that? Well, his record shows the obvious truth about it. Again, look at the numbers. Chuck Schumer supported CRs to help avert a government shutdown 29 out of 30 times as leader of his party. And he emphatically supported every single CR enacted into law since 2017, except for one. And of course, you won't have to do much research to figure out who was in the White House during that time. If you said Donald Trump, you'd be right. And it doesn't take a genius to see that's exactly the same reason why he's doing causing these antics today. So what you'll also notice about the CRs is that they become routine. It's the routine thing to do around here. It's Washington's bad habit. And a CR was meant to be a temporary measure, is meant and designed to just keep the government open and funded for the people while Congress finishes its work on a final budget. And that's not happened in a long time. CRs have become too common. It's the status quo. It's not the way the founders intended for this process to work. The appropriations process was envisioned to be an exercise in good stewardship. They wanted the members of Congress to have open, transparent, bipartisan, line-by-line debate so that we could spend the people's money wisely. And that's precisely what Republicans are so eager to return to and what we have achieved. We are pushing that boulder uphill, as I've said, and for the first time since 2019, both chambers, House and Senate, have made real progress towards that stewardship goal. But we just need a little more time to finish it. That's the only thing the House passed CR does. It's a clean, short-term, nonpartisan continuance of funding so that that process can work out. Now, you've all heard Chuck Schumer demand that Republicans have to come to the negotiating table. Well before, this is an important answer to some of the questions that I anticipate you'll ask later because it comes up in every press conference. Why won't you negotiate? Here's the point. We were already doing that. Before the Democrats recklessly shut down the government for their own political purposes, Republicans and Democrats were already engaged in responsible, open, bipartisan processes to find answers to these problems. And what Chuck Schumer means when he says that he wants us to negotiate is that he is demanding, and he said it publicly, I can't believe he says the quiet parts out loud sometimes, but he wants a backroom deal. He wants a backroom deal that the American people will never see. He literally has said, we need the top 4 leaders to go into a room and work this out. Why does Chuck Schumer say that? Because that's how he's operated for decades. He's been in Congress since 1980. I was 9 years old in the 3rd grade when Chuck Schumer got here, okay? He is the broken status quo. We are trying to break the status quo so government works better for the people. And Chuck Schumer is resistant to that because he can't even imagine the way the founders intended for this to work. He doesn't want this open, everybody involved, all members, bottom-up process. He wants 4 people to go in a back room and just make this deal and hoist it down upon everybody else. I'm not participating in that. Chuck Schumer doesn't like that. He doesn't like that we're trying to get Washington to work again, because he doesn't know how to operate in that kind of system. And we're certainly not going to allow the American people to be taken hostage for his political gain. I'm going to hand it off first here to the indomitable Dr. Virginia Fox. She is the chairwoman of our House Rules Committee. We call her the Iron Lady of the House. I know she has a lot to say about Democrats' obstruction. She's going to lay out some of the indisputable facts of this government shutdown. Dr. Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for your continued work in calling attention to the facts. You remain consistent and concise in explaining to the American people that the Democrats have shut down the government. And thank you to the members of our leadership team and members of the entire conference who've been equally as vocal and engaged. I've listened to the arguments the Democrats have been making since they shut down the government, and I cannot help but shake my head in utter disgust every time. They continue to lie like a rug. They're trying desperately to change the conversation and deflect because they know they're in the wrong and they've dug themselves into a deep, deep hole. We've now entered day 14 of their government shutdown, and as the days go on, more Americans are feeling the pain. Make no mistake about it, this is real pain being inflicted upon real people. Today, 400,000 federal workers will receive partial paychecks. The Speaker called attention to this last week. This will be the last paycheck that these federal workers receive until Democrats grow a spine and reopen the federal government. Meanwhile, you have Chuck Schumer in the Senate who said in a recent interview, quote, "Every day gets better for us," end quote. His statement is as callous as it is tone deaf. And it reveals to everyone how the Democrats continue to use hardworking Americans as pawns in their own grotesque political game. I'll close with a quick observation. As the Speaker said previously, there's a real split screen here in Washington that the American people are watching. While Republicans are the ones who have voted and are continuing to vote to reopen the government, Democrats have treated their own shutdown as one big attention-getting activity. They've taken shutdown selfies, posted weird videos of themselves doing everything except working, and they even hosted a live stream that failed to gain any traction whatsoever. How embarrassing. These are not serious people. They continue to play a dangerous game with the livelihoods of Americans. And contrary to what Democrats believe, every day of this shutdown does not get any better for the American people. That's a stone-cold fact. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair Fox. And as the Speaker talked about, a lot of people say, why have the Democrats continued this charade of shutting down the government and inflicting pain, real pain, on millions of families across America. And the Speaker laid it out real clear. Chuck Schumer filed an alternative bill weeks ago of his list of demands, literally a list of demands that he said have to be met before he releases the American people from this torrential pain he's inflicting. And it includes $1.5 trillion of new spending on far-left wish lists. Things like, yes, taxpayer-funded health care for illegals. It's in Chuck Schumer's bill. He guts rural hospitals, all as part of his demand to open up the government. It's not only not serious, it's also destructive. It's something that would actually hurt this country. And why? All so that he can show the radicals and the far left of his party that he's fighting Donald Trump. Everybody knows that's what this is about. Chuck Schumer is scared to death for his political future. He is way more concerned about his political job than he is about the jobs of millions of American families. And it's having a real impact on those families. Today, as has been pointed out, day 14 of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer imposed on the country, and it is the day where checks would normally be starting to be processed for all of the government workers, many of whom will not get a paycheck because of Chuck Schumer's shutdown. You're already starting to see flight delays, families trying to go visit a relative, maybe go see one of their family members get married, or go on a family vacation. They're not able to do that because of Chuck Schumer's shutdown. Our men and women in uniform at risk of losing their pay. And I will credit Donald Trump for a lot of things, but if you look, President Trump has not sat by and just waited for Chuck Schumer to get over his tantrum. President Trump has continued to do his job for the American people. And thank God, because the world is a safer place with President Trump at the helm. We saw that yesterday. What an historic day. And again, a real contrast to the temper tantrum that Chuck Schumer's having to appease the most radical elements of the far left base here in America. President Trump traveled to Israel, traveled to Egypt to sign historic peace accords, to oversee the release of hostages. Finally, all of the living hostages returned home to their loved ones after more than 2 years since the October 7th attack by Hamas. And one of the hostages, I think it's really important to hear this, because when you talk about real leadership, not just here in America, and the leadership that President Trump has provided to our country, but what that leadership means to the world, not only to our allies, but to the bad guys around the world. And yes, there are really bad people around the world. One of the former hostages who was released yesterday, Omar Shem Tov, credited President Trump with getting the hostages home. And he said, Hamas, quote, was very scared of Trump. They wanted Kamala to be elected. As soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wanted to bring us back home. So immediately, the way they treated me changed. That was a direct quote from one of the hostages who was released yesterday. You can see that leadership by President Trump on the world stage. And just such an historic day, a day where people were literally dancing in the streets in Middle Eastern countries. Peace in the Middle East. It used to be a platitude that for decades seemed to be a mirage in the desert. And yesterday it became a reality because Donald Trump said he was going to do something that nobody else thought could be done, but he knew it had to be done. And he made it happen and gave so much closure, important closure to those families, brought their loved ones back home, but told the bad guys that you're on alert. It's a new day in the world. You've seen all countries come together to see that moment in Egypt where countries from all around the world stood up to terror and said, we're going to restore peace in the Middle East. We're all going to be a part of it. And there's only one man that brought that together, and it was Donald Trump. Even during a time where the contrast of Chuck Schumer throwing a temper tantrum here at home just to appease the most radical elements of his base, so that on the 18th, when they have the Hate America rally that everybody knows is coming, and that everybody knows Chuck Schumer needs to deliver a shutdown government to them to appease them. Well, how about you think about us? How about you think about those families who are struggling today because of Chuck Schumer's shutdown? There are real consequences to what Chuck Schumer is doing. Regardless of who he thinks he's appeasing, he is hurting so many people, millions and millions of people. But President Trump is not going to be daunted. President Trump found a way over the weekend to pay our troops. While he was finding peace in the Middle East, President Trump also found a way to say, even while Chuck Schumer doesn't care about our men and women in uniform, Donald Trump does. And he made sure that they will get their pay. But there's still so many others that won't because of Chuck Schumer's shutdown. This madness has to end. It is time for this shutdown to end. Chuck, don't wait for some mad march on the mall. Don't wait for some pats on the back for radical leftists who just want to hate America every single day because Donald Trump is in the White House. They can't celebrate the release of hostages because of the guy who achieved that release. That's a twisted, small segment of our society. The rest of America is celebrating. The rest of America is proud of what we're achieving. And there's so much more that this great country can achieve if Chuck Schumer just got out of the way, just stopped blocking the progress that most Americans cherish, want, deserve. Our country deserves a whole lot better than what we're getting from the failed leadership. And as Speaker Johnson said, maybe it's because Chuck Schumer's been around too long and wants to hold on to the old way of doing things, the failed way of doing things, that he won't let it go. He won't allow a new, more transparent process for running the United States government. That you're seeing this leadership team, this president, delivering every single day. Chuck Schumer wants to hold on to the past, but the future is calling, and we're going to deliver. With that, let's bring up our whip.
As the Speaker noted, today should be a day of celebration. President Trump achieved a historic peace deal in the Middle East. The last living hostages held in captivity by Hamas have been returned with their families, reunited with their families. Yet, we're all here today marking day 14 of the Democrat shutdown. And to make matters even worse, if the Democrats had things their way, this would also mark the first week that our troops would not receive their paychecks. But thanks to the leadership of our Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, members of the military and their families will not be used as pawns in Chuck Schumer's shutdown game. Come tomorrow, our troops will get paid. But the consequences of the Democrats' shutdown are real. And unfortunately, they're only just getting started. OMB has already been forced to lay off its first round of federal workers. It doesn't have to be this way. Chuck Schumer, if you open the government today, this would end. If the Democrat shutdown continues, though, more Americans won't see a paycheck at the end of this month. Benefits like SNAP will be put at risk. Airports will be flooded with flight cancellations and delays amid the busiest time to travel all year. And the list goes on and on. Why? Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats would rather cater to the pro-terrorist wing of their party than to reopen our government. We've said it from this podium, it feels like 1,000,000 times, and we'll say it again. Republicans have done our job. We have a nonpartisan, clean CR ready in the Senate to be sent to President Trump's desk immediately, tonight, if they will pass it. We only need 5 Senate Democrats to break ranks with Chuck Schumer, vote for the same CR that they supported just 6 months ago, and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. But they have refused to do so 7 times and counting. And each time that they do, hardworking Americans are forced to pay the price. Our message to Senate Democrats today is the same message we've been saying since September 19th. Stop the political games, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government today. With that, I turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. And like my leadership team behind me said, it is a glorious day. Think of what happened yesterday. Just imagine for one moment you are a family member of one of the 20 hostages that were released. I mean, think of how that had to make you feel. We all watched it on TV, right? Joy, exuberation. I mean, there were tears of joy. There was relief. There was peace. And that was done because of our president, Donald Trump, put politics aside and said, I am going to stand up for the people. And he brought peace in the Middle East. He talked about it, yes, but yesterday he did it, and actions speak louder than words. He said enough of the political games, and I'm actually going to do what's right. Now compare and contrast that to what's going on today. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are putting politics over people. So instead of it being a joyous day that we celebrate, here we are in another government shutdown, 14 days in the making. And why? Just ask yourself why. It's clean, no gimmicks. It's absolutely clean. The speaker, the leader, the whip, we all said no gimmicks. Let's not use the American people as a pawn. Let's do what's right. Let's do something different and actually fund the government in the right way. What a concept. And Democrats, my goodness gracious, they absolutely do not want that to happen. Like the speaker said, Chuck Schumer wants all four leaders to get behind the scenes and make a deal. We're not going to do that. That's not how government is supposed to work. And I know I sound like a broken record, but the way to end this shutdown is really, really simple. Pass the bipartisan clean funding bill that the House approved weeks ago. The Republicans voted to keep the government open. Call your Democratic senators. They're voting to keep it shut, not us. So when you ask what negotiation, there's nothing to negotiate. We already passed, we said yes, right? Democrats won't do it. They'd rather please their radical base than put America first. Listen, I'm grateful to President Trump for finding a way to keep milk flowing to moms and babies through the WIC and paychecks going to our troops. Yes, I'm happy, but that's not going to last forever. Right? So there again, he's even putting people over politics. I mean, come on. But let's be clear. These emergency measures can't fully fix the Democrats' damage. He can try, but at some point in time, they're going to end. Sadly, as Americans suffer, Democrats, what do? They celebrate. As workers worry about their paycheck, Bernie Sanders worries about his leverage. As TSA agents and air traffic controllers show up without pay, Democrats brag they won't budge until planes fall out of the sky. Really? Really? Seriously, that's the Democrats' motto. I'm not budging till planes fall out of the sky. I'm gonna teach you women, you women and children and everybody a lesson. Really? Really? As Chuck Schumer says, it's getting better every day. For who, Chuck? Better for who? For the radicals cheering on the chaos? That's who. The radicals. The leaders openly admit it. Listen, the head of the insane indivisible literally said, and I quote, "Millions will be out cheering you on, or they'll be calling for new leadership." Really? I thought they were supposed to lead for the American people. Democrats, I ask you to stop listening to people who are cheering on this mayhem. Just stop all the political games and pass the House bill. Free the American people from being held hostage by your radical base.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Manu, go ahead.
You've been doing this every single day, coming up here trying to pressure Senate Democrats. They've been not budging. They've blocked this bill time and time again. So at what point, for the good of the country, do you need to change your strategy to try to negotiate a deal with them?
It's a great question. Manu asks, why don't I change my strategy? I don't have any strategy, Manu. I'm doing the right thing, the clearly obvious thing, the traditional thing. That's exactly what Chuck Schumer voted for in March of this year and gave impassioned speeches was the right and only thing. I don't have anything to negotiate. I'll say this again to everyone here. We did not load up the temporary funding bill with any Republican priorities or partisan priorities at all. I don't have anything that I can take off of that document to make it more palatable for them. So all I am able to do is come to this microphone every day, look right into the camera and plead with the American people, as Chairwoman McClain said, to call your Senate Democrats and ask them to do the right thing. We're not playing games. They're playing a game. We're not. The strategy is to do the right and obvious thing and keep the government moving for the people.
Why not move closer to their position?
Their position is this, Manu. Their position is they want to spend $1.5 trillion in your tax dollars to fund nonsense overseas. They want to give $200 billion to illegal aliens. We are not going to do that. We're not going to do it. The American people don't want us to do it. And they're using this for partisan political purposes to give themselves cover. They don't want the Marxist to kick. Chuck Schumer doesn't want to get a Marxist candidate challenge, AOC or someone else. Mamdani is probably going to be sadly, shockingly, the mayor of New York City. Marxism is on the rise in hey, this is not your father's Democratic Party, everybody, okay? They're turning into communists openly. And so Chuck Schumer does not fashion himself as a communist just yet. So he's got to show a fight to these people. That's what this is about. I'm not playing his game, Manu. I cannot go in and say, oh, gee, Chuck, what can I offer you? You know what? Maybe we'll just send $10 billion overseas to LGBTQ plus, initiatives in, the Horn of Africa or Malaysia or wherever you want to do that. No, we're not wasting taxpayers' dollars. Chad.
Mr. Speaker, good morning. Thank you. You said last week that you would swear in Adelita Golova whenever she wants. She's written a letter to your office. You've not sworn her in.
Yeah.
I understand about pro forma sessions.
Yes.
Doesn't your resistance to not swear her in add fuel to the fire that this is about the Epstein?
No. Let's talk about Grijalva and Epstein. Okay. Once more for everybody. Everybody in Congress, I think, is for maximum transparency of the Epstein files. That is underway right now. Let me point out before I go further, all of the files were in the possession of the Biden-Harris Department of Justice for 4 years. Every single thing that we're talking about right now was in their sole possession. They could have released it. They could have done anything. Ro Khanna, all the Democrats who are jumping up and down making noise about this, didn't say a peep about it for 4 years. I don't know why, but this is another partisan manufactured thing. Is it a serious problem? Yes. I've sat with the victims, some of the ladies who bravely have come forward and talked about the horrors that they sustained because of traffickers on Epstein Island and all the things he was involved in. Everybody involved in that should have the full weight of justice descend upon their head. And we're all for that. We want every single person who had anything to do with that to be exposed. But there's as many as 1,000 victims estimated. That's what the victims say. There may be 1,000 women who were made to suffer these unspeakable harms because of this. Many of them were underage at the time. They have not all chosen to come forward like some of these other brave women have for obvious reasons. And we have to make sure that when the files are released, their names are redacted so they don't suffer further harm. We have a duty and a responsibility. You can't just wave a wand and just, open the floodgates. You have to make sure that the victims don't suffer additional harms. That's all we've said. Let's make sure it's done the right way. That's underway, by the way. The House Oversight Committee asked the Democrats and Republicans on that committee who are working on that vigorously. As I said, some of the biggest, bulldogs in Congress are on that committee, and they're all joined together in a bipartisan fashion, digging through and releasing documents. 34,000 documents so far, and more on the way. In fact, as I noted a couple of days ago, the attorneys for the House Oversight Committee during the shutdown are still doing work. They were in New York City combing through the Epstein estate files. By the way, that was never even mentioned or anticipated in the discharge petition, for those of you who are following all the details of this. So more is coming out. We're for all of it coming out as soon as possible. The only thing we want to make sure of is that the innocent victims are protected, and I think we have a responsibility to do that. With regard to Grijalva, our dear friend from Louisiana, Julia Letlow, won a special election back in 2021. It was in March, as I remember. Speaker Pelosi took 25 days to administer the oath of office to her. Now, no Democrats, jumped up and down and screamed about that, nor do I recall any Republicans, because everybody understood this is the process of the House. You do it as soon as you're able to do it. Ms. Grijalva won her election, and credit to her. She's going to fill her father's seat. I congratulate her. We're happy for her to serve. I'm going to be happy to administer the oath to her, as I am to every member who wins a who is duly elected to this body. It's a great honor. But she won her election after the House was out of session. So we've not had a full session. She deserves to have all the pomp and circumstance that everybody else does. She deserves to have a full House of members and go down and do the speech and have her family and friends in the balcony. That hasn't been scheduled because we haven't had that session yet. As soon as Chuck Schumer opens the government, as soon as Mark Kelly and Senator Gallegos, the two senators from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva's state, will go and join with 3 others and open the government, we're happy. We'll have that as soon as we get back to business. But we have to get back to business. They have to open the government. I don't know how else I can answer that question. Yes, sir.
I had some of the planned protest activity this weekend, and in light of some of the images we've seen out of Chicago of federal agents shooting faith leaders with pepper balls and arresting journalists, where's the limit for you on what's acceptable conduct for federal law enforcement, and when is it incumbent on Congress to step up and demand oversight?
To demand oversight on federal law enforcement? Well, I've not seen them cross the line yet, and that we have committees of jurisdiction who have that responsibility, but it's not risen to that level. What I've seen is the abuse of law enforcement by radical leftist activists. Most recently, the most threatening thing I've seen yet was the naked bicyclers in Portland who were protesting ICE down there. I mean, it's getting really ugly. They have attacked, physically assaulted officers. People have been arrested, okay? This is serious business, and ICE and the valiant, brave, patriotic Americans who step up to serve in these dangerous law enforcement positions deserve our respect and our support. And any elected member of this body should be vocally supporting law enforcement. You're supposed to be on the side of the good, not the crazy radicals. Look, I was a First Amendment lawyer. I understand. I was a religious liberty defense lawyer. I understand free speech. We vigorously protect the right to free speech, but you cannot assault law enforcement officers. And there is a line that has to be maintained. It's not risen to the level of Congress yet, but we're watching that closely. And the Republican Party stands for law enforcement. That's where we're going to be. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What would you say to those who question the legality of the administration repurposing some of those funds to pay military members?
Look, my understanding of this is they have every right to move the funds around, duly appropriated dollars from Congress to the Department of Defense. There were some R&D accounts that had not been spent, and that's my understanding is that's the money that's being used to pay the troops right now. If the Democrats want to go to court and challenge troops being paid, bring it, okay? I'm grateful for a commander-in-chief who understands the priorities of the country, the necessity of national defense, and the urgency that we all feel and have voted for 8 times. Republicans have voted in Congress 8 times now between House and Senate to fund the troops and pay federal workers in all these essential jobs and agencies because we understand the necessity of that. Meanwhile, the Democrats voted 8 times to block their paychecks. I'm grateful we have a president who is willing to step up and do the right thing. Thank you all so much.